When people say that a crazy person is going to say they're not crazy, what does that mean? If I'm to translate that phrase into psychiatric language, I might equate the word crazy with a psychotic state. And a psychotic state is when a person has lost touch with reality, either partially or completely. And they might be aware that something is wrong in the way that they're perceiving their reality, or they might not be aware at all that something is wrong. And the ones that are not aware that they've lost touch with reality are the ones who might not see anything wrong in the way they think, the way they express themselves, the way they behave, the way they act. And so the one people who deny that they're crazy are the ones in psychiatry who say they lack insight. They are not aware that they've lost touch with reality. And how do we know that a person has lost touch with reality? We look at the way they think, the way they feel, and the way they behave. There's going to be distortion in these areas. So for example, in the way they think, a person who's having a psychotic episode or is in a psychotic state and in the public discourse crazy will start perceiving things in their environment that are not there because they've lost touch with the reality in their environment. And so here we're going to see a symptom called hallucination. And hallucination is a person falsely perceiving a stimulus where there's no stimulus. So a stimulus here is a person, an object, something in the environment. So this can affect all the five senses. So a person, in psychiatry mostly we see auditory hallucination, a person hearing voices of people talking and there's no one in the environment talking. And these voices, they're perceived as if they're real people they're interacting with, and they're spontaneous, so they're not in their control. So, and the perception, because they've lost touch with reality, they're in a different reality where they perceive them as real as the way we are engaging with each other in reality. And that's why for them, when they're hearing voices and they're engaging perhaps with those voices that they're hearing, that is real for them, especially those who lack insight, those who don't know that something is different. And so you might see somebody sitting somewhere talking by themselves. That is reality. But to them, they're in a different reality and they're engaging with somebody. And so when you see them even having gestures and explaining something, there's somebody there that they're engaging with. So in this case, a person might also have, let's say, visual hallucination. So they're seeing somebody sitting next to them that they're engaging with, but there's actually no one there. But to them there is, and they perceive it as strongly as a real person sitting next to them. So that's hallucination. Also, they might have these false beliefs about something that cannot be supported by any evidence. So they might believe that somebody's out to get them, somebody's out to harm them, yet there's no one, and the evidence has to be evaluated. There's no one out to get them. And so we call those delusions. And these delusions, they're not supported by their cultural practices. So in some cultures, persecution is something that could happen. People might want to harm you, either physically or witchcraft or other stuff. And so if there's evidence that there's someone trying to harm the patient, then it ceases to be a delusion, because then this evidence disputes the false belief. Now it becomes true. And so when people say that crazy people deny they're crazy, there's a particular set of mental illnesses that cause psychosis, where a person does not have insight that might fit that characterization, that crazy people will say they're not crazy. Because when they're in that reality that is separate from the one that we all share, then they experience their psychosis as real, as the way we experience our real reality.